I'll read from a press release provided by the publisher of Noam Chomsky's latest book. The following are Chomsky's words. Hijacking boats in international waters and killing passengers is, of course, a serious crime. The editors of the London Guardian are quite right to say that, quote, if an armed group of Somali pirates had yesterday boarded 6 vessels on the high seas, killing at least 10 passengers and injuring many more, a NATO task force would today be heading for the Somali coast. It is worth bearing in mind that the crime is nothing new. For decades, Israel has been hijacking boats in international waters between Cyprus and Lebanon, killing or kidnapping passengers, sometimes bringing them to prisons in Israel, including secret prison/torture chambers, sometimes holding them as hostages for many years. Israel assumes that it can carry out such crimes with impunity because the U.S. tolerates them and Europe generally follows the U.S. lead. Much the same is true of Israel's pretext for its latest crime. That the Freedom Flotilla was bringing materials that could be used for bunkers for rockets? Putting aside the absurdity, if Israel were interested in stopping Hamas rockets, it knows exactly how to proceed, except Hamas offers for a ceasefire. In June 2008, Israel and Hamas reached a ceasefire agreement. The Israeli government formally acknowledges that until Israel broke the agreement on November 4th, invading Gaza and killing half a dozen Hamas activists, Hamas did not fire a single rocket. Hamas offered to renew the ceasefire. The Israeli cabinet considered the offer and rejected it, preferring to launch its murderous and destructive Operation Cast Lead on December 27th. Evidently, there is no justification for the use of force, quote-unquote, in self-defense, unless peaceful means have been exhausted. In this case, they were not even tried, although, or perhaps because, there was every reason to suppose that they would succeed. Operation Cast Lead is therefore sheer criminal aggression with no credible pretext, and the same is true of Israel's current resort to force. The siege of Gaza itself does not have the slightest credible pretext. It was imposed by the U.S. and Israel in January 2006 to punish Palestinians because they voted quote-unquote the wrong way in a free election, and it was sharply intensified in July 2007 when Hamas blocked a U.S.-Israeli attempt to overthrow the elected government in a military coup, installing Fatah strongman Muhammad Dahlan. The siege is savage and cruel, designed to keep the caged animals barely alive so as to fend off international protests, but hardly more than that. It is the latest stage of long-standing Israeli plans, backed by the U.S., to separate Gaza from the West Bank. These are only the bare outlines of very ugly policies, in which Egypt is complicit as well. By the way, the preceding statement was part of a longer interview for an Egyptian weekly which you can read online. But the Egyptian weekly edited this out, Chomsky's mention of Egypt's complicity in Israel's crimes. And largely the press in the US really isn't better than this. Along with the other topics he deals with, Chomsky writes about the press's poor performance in his latest book, Hopes and Prospects. See this link in the video info.